Eiléan de Chuilleanáin allows those who've been silenced by history to surface in art as surreal but living presences. Her poetry is one of half secrets, half revelation, scrupulously controlled, but also continuously startling, using the language of history, religion, landscape, and myth to unlock those categories of experience for which poetry is the proper language. While her numerous images of mythical figures, travelers, pilgrims, and women, especially of the veiled subject of the nun, reminds us of our deepest inner sanctum, with its litany of spiritual truths, human fears and needs. Those images also catalog the importance of the ordinary and the domestic as new metaphors for human experience and emotion. Her poetry is oblique but always concrete, reflecting the elemental realities of fire, air, water, and earth, giving utterance to what most challenges speech. Her rich, haunting word travels through liminal landscapes, subtly searching the boundaries of the spiritual and the physical. She is a consummate poet, whose revelatory imagery and sensibility are unrivaled in depth and refinement. The Boys of Blue Hill, her most recent volume, displays all of the insight and mysteriousness that characterize her best work. Quote, the forest floats over the land. The island slides across the sea. They are thin as air, as a leaf that has stayed a century inside a book. These qualities make the most accessible of poems deeply resonant and the most difficult ones worth the many readings. The themes of music, religion, art, and language, and nature unwind a fable of being and perception which is unmistakably hers. From the memory-laden and information and the visionaries, the skellies, through the haunting who were those travelers, onto the ars poetica of dreams and the words collide, the second her meditation on the difficulties of translation, this volume continually draws us into its own extraordinary perspective. And I quote, along the alleys, the wind whispered to me, open your hand, let it fall down, whatever you were holding. Let it lie until the day after, let it go, let it lie until it is blown to the river. Do not look back to see whose hand finds it or where it is hidden again when found. Before we proceed, we would like to thank the Office of the Provost, Lynn Sutton in particular, for ongoing support, the Dylan Johnson Writers Reading Series for its generosity. I also would like to thank Amanda Keith for providing the logistics and the student interns, Christina Barry, Shannon McGee, Ashley Mellon, Nicole Cahill, Alex Mueller, Blair Wessel, Katie Huggins, and Sophie Levesque for all of their assistance. Lastly, I would like to thank all of you for coming, and would add that there will be books and broadsides for sale during the reception which follows the reading. Eiléan?
I'm going to read a few poems on a number of themes, one of which is my very oldest one, which is nuns. I also want to read some poems about music, and then we'll see where we go from there. All my life as a poet, I have been somewhat haunted by nuns. There's an explanation for this. I have a number of aunts who are nuns. And I grew up in a world in which it was genuinely believed that the natural thing for a girl to want to be was a nun in a convent. And so I spent my youth avoiding the idea. But when I started to write poetry, all of a sudden the nuns were there and I couldn't tell them to go away. And they have, in fact, remained with me as the most fascinating subject ever since. I have another obsession, which is railway trains. My father was the son of a station master. And I never managed to write poems about trains. But I'm going to start with an oldish poem called The Sister, in which I finally do manage to get a nun onto a train. The sister. How on earth did she manage that journey on her own? When she was a young woman, they had plenty to keep them busy. They were small, they felt queasy, they gripped a pillar in the shade and held on. And as for leaving home, still the trains have never changed. They thunder up the valleys, built for strapping fellows, flinging their big bundles easily onto high shelves, real men. She turned up at the station, small, her clothes once elegant, all black. Past the train window slid the suburbs, a fast river. She saw a white-haired man, waist-deep, ducking under and rising again, a cormorant. A lump of a lad handed her bag down to her. Lopsided, she walked as far as the convent door. They greeted her with a leathery kiss. They told her where to find her bed and the hour of dinner. They knew the silent meal would be no surprise, no more than the hard bread, tougher at every slice, nor the dead silence of night until the first train troubled the valley. She would know lying there, others were sitting up, working in pairs to finish the stitching, tacking the last of the lace. But the cold woke her, and a subtle mist as fine as gauze hung on the glass. In the freezing dawn, she dragged a web just as light across her skin, veiling herself for good, and she slept on. And I read a poem which is a good deal more recent. It's called Inside the House. And I actually, this came from hearing an old nun on the radio talking in the most hilarious voice about the pleasure she used to get out of cleaning the chimneys when they weren't allowed to have a chimney sweep. They weren't allowed to have a man inside the door. And it was part, obviously, of her entire pleasure in the life that she had led in the convent. Inside the house. She crossed the footbridge. The bell was ringing from the chapel. They were there, expecting her. In she went, inside like breathing, her quest for the kernel, the seed that might burst and make a way of release for her, escape, even if its hiding place was a shell, even if it had to be secret as the fragile yoke that held the giant's life. She plumbed the basement and searched inside the chimneys. She laughed, telling the story. "Oh, you do that," she said. "We couldn't have a man inside the door, the kitchen chimney, and I loved it. Well, I remember the old days. You'd be black all over after it."